All right, this is your first lecture for the Civil Rights Movement. This is going to be an introduction. We're going to kind of go in and talk about one of the key aspects of the Civil Rights Movement, one of the big events that happened near the end here. So let's get it started. Taking you back to some previous legislation on segregation. So in 1875, so we're going back a century here, we have the Civil Rights Act, which outlawed segregation of public facilities. And this is, dealing with Reconstruction in the South after the Civil War, and what we're going to do to kind of create a new equal society with whites and blacks in the South. In 1883, an all-white Supreme Court declared this unconstitutional, but people objected to that, and so there was a court case called Plessy versus Ferguson, which created separate but equal, and that's kind of a review from the past here. So they said that as long as you had equal facilities, they could separate the races. So, obviously the facilities were never equal, but they were kind of able to get away with it in the South. Segregation in the North, most blacks lived in all black neighborhoods, and white resentment led to violence against African Americans. There was never truly a full integration of whites and blacks. They stayed separate and lived in different ethnic regions. And then we have a developing civil rights movement. During World War II, minorities worked many labor jobs during the war, and this kind of helped to prove that African Americans were capable of, and other minorities were capable of, doing equal work as whites. And we had 1 million minority soldiers in the war, again proving that blacks could stand, and other ethnic minorities could stand together and stand with whites and fight with whites and fight and work with whites as well. So it's kind of proving their case, that people had always said they weren't capable, and now they're showing and proving that they are capable of being equal. So challenging segregation in courts. Thurgood Marshall led the NAACP, and again, a review, the NAACP is the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, and they were fighting to make things equal between whites and blacks. Thurgood Marshall was their attorney, their head attorney, and he led many court cases. So one is Morgan v. Virginia. This declared that state laws were unconstitutional that mandated segregated seating on public buses. And another one, Sweat versus Painter, deals with the Texas Law School. And there's a law school in Texas that at Austin that said that would not admit African Americans. And because there is a separate facility that was supposed to be equal, but in the court case determined that these were not equal facilities, so that these law schools had to admit African American students. And then we have the famous Brown versus Board of Education of Topeka, and this struck down segregation in schooling, and it's relevant to 12 million school children countrywide. And we started busing students because these schools, white schools and black schools, were not equal. Black schools got the rundown facilities, rundown supplies. Textbooks were old and outdated, so there was not an equal education. So they started to bus African American students to white schools in order to try to integrate and make it more equal. So the reaction to the Brown decision, here's a quote. It says, "The people of Georgia will map a program to ensure permanent segregation of the races." So people in the South showed that they did not want this to happen. A lot of it dealt with the parents of the school children. They were more upset about it than the actual school children were themselves. They didn't really see the segregation at this point in their lives. There was a resistance to school desegregation. Baltimore, D.C., and St. Louis, whites and blacks went to school together already. Other areas with larger black population had more difficulties. The KKK would get involved and boycott businesses that supported desegregation. And then Brown, too, was ordered to desegregation to be more speedy. So Brown 1 basically said that they had to do it with all deliberate speed, integrate these schools with all deliberate speed, and this basically meant that as long as you were trying, it was working. And they decided that this was not acceptable, and it wasn't happening fast enough, so Brown 2 sped that system up. So there's a crisis in Little Rock in Arkansas. There was it was very progressive with regards to desegregation, and had admitted blacks to universities without court orders. But the new governor was pro-segregation, and he sent the National Guard to send away these Little Rock 9. There were 9 students who who basically volunteered to integrate Little Rock Central High School. The NAACP helped 8 of the 9 to get to school. The 9th student got to school with the aid of 2 friendly whites on the bus, and it got out of control. People were protesting. They're not allowing these people to get in. Parents are going crazy, and Eisenhower is actually forced to send in troops to protect these students and allow them to go to school. The final thing we'll talk about today is the Montgomery bus boycott, and this is the boycott involving Rosa Parks. Rosa Parks was the perfect person to work with this boycott and to be the leader of this movement. She was an older woman, but she was a strong woman, and she basically refused to give up her seat due to new laws that said she didn't have to. But she ended up being arrested for not giving up her seat, and this led to a bus boycott that Martin Luther King Jr. organized, and this is kind of where he gets his fame. He was a local pastor, and he helped to organize this boycott. Basically, blacks would either walk to work or they'd organize in carpools, and buses would run with empty seats, and it really hurt the city because they had to pay for these buses to run with no riders, and eventually they won out, and in 1956 the Supreme Court outlawed bus segregation. And this is going to kind of promote Martin Luther King Jr.'s idea of peaceful protest, and he kind of goes along the lines of what Gandhi was preaching, and that's kind of the start of the movement. All right, we'll pick up from there later on. Thank you.